Too many leaders talk a lot, but they don't say that much.
Welcome to another dynamic episode of Eliot Kelly TV. I have with me the distinguished pleasure of introducing Mr. David Lancefield. He is a catalyst, he's a strategist, and he's a coach, and he's here on Eliot Kelly TV. Welcome, David.
Welcome, Eliot. Thank you ever so much. What an introduction.
Today, we're going to be talking about, as we said, transformation and impact. But before we go into that and how you're changing lives, share with us your story, please, David.
That's a big question to kick off with. I won't give you my life story, but brought up in Dorset on the south coast of the UK, lovely country town, very happy life. State school comprehensive, went to university, became a partner in PwC at the age of 32, which is quite young, good market and some good mentors. Worked all around the world, working on strategy, culture, innovation. And then last July 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, left PwC at the age of 46 after 14 years of partnership to do my own thing in the areas you've described. So that's a pen picture.
How exactly are you helping leaders to transform their impact?
First, you have to pique their curiosity, right? Curiosity in the world around them, what's going on, perhaps a little bit further than their normal organization, and actually be more curious about the people they work with, to try and understand what their hopes, fears, motivations, biases are. And then I think you have to instill a bit of creativity inside them. Imagine some new things, new ideas, changing the world, solving problems in ways they haven't done before. And then very importantly, once you sort of lighted the imagination, if you like, and the energy, hence the catalyst term, I think you have to encourage clarity about what they stand for, what they're there to do, and indeed what they're not willing to do. Too many leaders talk a lot, but they don't say that much. And actually, they think they're really clear, and the people next to them or hearing them are saying, okay, that sounds really good, but I'm not clear about what you're asking me to do. So clarity is another one. Coherence is clear as well, is really important. Coherence, it's okay to say something, but then you've got to do it yourself. We've seen political leaders and business leaders say one thing during the pandemic and do another, and that sort of undermines trust that is critical for any transformation. And then courage is important too. When you're trying to change an organization, up the speed, if you like, that creates momentum, improve the profitability, the growth, the prospects, you have to challenge some behaviours. Perhaps people aren't doing what they should be doing. Perhaps there's some, if you like, people who belong in another organization. Perhaps there's some unethical behaviours. So you need courage to tackle them. And I think very importantly, lastly, care. I think if you're leading an organization, I think you have to deeply care about the people you work with, not just as numbers on a page or a spreadsheet or contributors to sales, but individuals. And we've seen great leadership during the pandemic, particularly around mental health, support, caring, that frankly we should have had before. And lastly, you really got to care for yourself. Right? Leadership and transforming an organization is incredibly demanding. It can take over your life. And if you don't care for yourself, whether that's what you eat, who you spend time with, how much media you take in, and how much exercise you do, you're not likely to make smart decisions. I mean, how many leaders are underslept and tired and make bad decisions? So those are some of the C's of, if you like, leadership that I try and instill in leaders I work with.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing. We're on with David Lancefield. Go ahead and smash that share button, hit the subscribe, and you have to hit that notification bell. You know how we do it here on Eliot Kelly TV. You spoke about grooming and self-care there. I was watching one of your shows on your podcast, which is a very dynamic podcast, and you and your guest were sharing about first impressions. And I thought it was so important that I piggyback on your point in that we only get one chance to make that first impression. So anyone who's looking, you can go ahead and connect with David's show as well. What does success mean to you, David?
I think success has meant different things at different stages of my life. There are times where, frankly, money's been important, right? To get on a housing ladder, or because I had some debt or whatever it is. I think success now, candidly, given my situation, is having a healthy, happy family, right? Some really good relationships with people that genuinely care, care about you and so forth. And then I guess in this stage of my career, it's making a bit of a difference. And that sounds a bit glib, but really, if you like, trying to change the way people think about strategy, about transformation, a bit more human, without losing the commercial edge that you need. I mean, we talk about purpose a lot in organizations. You can only be purposeful if you're making enough money to support people. And so they go hand in hand. So I want to, I guess, create a new cadre of leaders at this stage of my career. And I guess try to be kind along the way. I don't believe that success, commercial success, professional success, has to come with being rude or having the wrong values. I actually think they're an enabler for success.
You spoke about leaders, and you're popular for working with CEOs, C-suite leaders, and helping them change or transform their strategic intent into experiments. Tell us what that looks like.
So it's one thing to talk about strategy, which is about choices, about where an organization needs to go, not just tomorrow, but in the next number of months and years, in order to win the hearts, minds, and wallets of consumers. That's one thing, but then where do you start? So you have to start experimenting, trying something out. So it may be we want to launch a new product or service, or we want to experiment with a new way of working in the organization. For example, fewer meetings, being more honest about what we think. Now, those are often concepts and practices that people agree with, but they're quite hard to get your hands around them. So what leaders need to do, or anybody needs to do, frankly, is to create small teams. Say, right, for the next meeting or the next week or two, we're going to sprint, if you like. It's like agile working, sprint. We're going to try something out, see how it goes. If it works, we'll take it along the organization. If it doesn't work, we'll learn and try something different. So it's trying to distill big picture concepts into something quite tangible and quite real.
Thank you, David. What are 3 habits that you actually employ that keep you successful?
I try to keep learning. That's one. And that sounds obvious, but I think when you become a bit, I'm not that old, but older, you think, well, I'm actually good at what I do. You just carry on doing the same thing. So I've been taking a number of courses and programs that I don't think that many people at senior level will be doing, because they probably think they know it all. And every single course that I've done, I thought, oh, actually, that's pretty cool. That's fresh. So learning, trying to learn something. Another habit is spending time with good people. And what I mean by that is good people who have good intent. That doesn't mean that I agree with them. That doesn't mean they come from the same background. But they're sort of, we want to do good stuff together. We may disagree, but they're not trying to be Machiavellian or destructive or something else. So that's the second one. And the third one, which I do, if you like, I do myself, but I don't do enough of it, is just enjoy the moments when it goes really well. It's very easy, especially in a professional environment. And I don't critique my old employer. Maybe I do a little bit. But there's a little bit when you do something well, it's taken as a given. Oh, you've done a great job on this project or this year. And you have that small amount of conversation, and then you go on to, but you need to do better on this. And you focus on not the negatives, but the gaps. So I'm learning to sort of can save the small moments, often quite small, but you think, that's gone well. Because that breeds, I guess, some energy, it gives you some sense of gratitude and give you some memory for when you are facing difficulties in the future. You can then go back to them and think, hey, I've done that before and that worked well. So learning, good people, and a bit of, just enjoying life a bit more, perhaps.
Bit of a pat on the back, definitely.
Yeah, not too much, but you don't want to get smug, but just a little bit more than I have.
Great, thank you. I want to give a shout out to Steve Harville, who actually came on our show and actually introduced us. So a big shout out to Steve Harville. Go ahead and watch that show there on YouTube as well. Is there anyone you would like to give a shout out to?
Well, there's a good friend of mine, Ron Carucci. Ron is a US guy. He's written, I think, 8, now 9 books. And he's just talk about how you create honest organizations, which I think, we need a few more of those around. And I think, he's written a great book on that, but he's a great guy. He's been very kind to me, very generous with his time. And when you're now in a world where you're not in a big organization, having friends and collaborators like that are really, really valuable.
Thank you. How can our audience get in contact with you, David?
Well, I have a David at davidlancefield.com. Not the most creative, but it's simple. And I have a site, davidlancefield.com, and then I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. And I guess I love to share stories, ideas. I also love debates and people coming forward with ideas. I definitely don't have the answers, so I look forward to the stimulus, if you like.
Good. What does the future hold for you, David?
I keep at the moment, Eliot, I'm looking short term. Look, I'm trying to build a bit of a brand around what I do, what I stand for. It takes time, right? I'm a bit impatient sometimes. And coming from a big organization, let's be honest, you stand behind a very strong corporate brand. And although I still have that network and I'm still, close to various people, there's something about building my own platform and my brand and practicing what I preach in terms of experimentation. I don't want to lock myself in too quickly. As my sister said, my sister's a psychiatrist. She said, David, you've been institutionalized for 25 years, not in her sense, but in the sense of a big organization. I'm trying to give myself a sense of time to breathe and try a few things out, keynote speaking, doing some teaching, some board advisory roles, and just enjoying that and seeing what works. And candidly, and this is hard, I've had some ups and downs in the last few weeks, where working out what people value in you, right, and just learning. So that's the future, and getting fitter. I tell you, that's the other one.
Thank you so much. Again, if you found any value on today's show, go ahead and smash that share button. You know how we do it, and hit the notification bell. We are doing some giveaways today. I want to give away 3 books. As you know, recently we had World Book Day, so I want to give away The Millionaire Next Door. That's by Thomas Stanley. Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, and The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. You'll also get my book, The Eye of the Needle, The Cost of Success, for $49.99 US. You know how to connect with us down in the comments or follow on the website, on social media. Just type in Eliot Kelly. You can get the information there. Any words of inspiration to those persons who might want to enter the coaching space?
I think there is potential in every single person. And I think people can do amazing things. Doesn't matter what background, doesn't matter where they come from in life, who they are, what role they are. I think I start with the belief that every single individual has something amazing in them. And I mean that sincerely. This is not just made up. And I think the craft and the skill and the ability of a coach or a mentor or anyone else around them is to show that curiosity in them, actually show some belief, give them some space to express themselves. Often we're interrupted too much, or people finishing our sentences for us. And so there's something around giving them a platform to actually express what they think, and actually then backing them. And I've got so many examples of people where you might have assumed, we all make assumptions, right? You might have assumed that they could or couldn't do something. And then they had a change of mindset. They, if you like, looked at themselves deeply. I helped them with a few sort of steps, first initial steps, and then they flew. And that's what gives me a particular buzz. And they did it, importantly, Eliot, in their own way, not according to some manual or not according to my way, but they did it in their own way. And that's really important, because if they don't, one, it's just not right. I mean, it's about their individual. Secondly, what happens is they start doing something, and then they're always looking behind them for somebody else to tell them what the next step is. You've got to create your own like muscle, your own sort of ability to keep changing and reinventing yourself.
Thank you so much. Our quote today is actually by Jim Rohn, American businessman, and he says we should stand guard to the gates of our mind, as our thoughts create our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. We've been talking about transformation and impact with David Lancefield on Eliot Kelly TV. Never lose your passion.